60% of small, medium businesses that get hacked or have a data breach will go out of business within 6 months. The average cost of a data breach in the United States for 2016 was over $7 million. For small businesses, quickly. So between the revenue hit and the hit to your integrity, if you get a data breach, there's a good likelihood that you will be going out of business. Now, the criminals understand the vulnerabilities that are on your network. And you need to think more than just your PCs, your printers, your servers. You have to be thinking about the Internet of Things. Think about the smart TV that's in your conference room or in your lobby. Think about Alexa that's playing music. Think about your vending machines. They could be phoning home because the inventory is low and they want to let Coke or Pepsi know to come fill up the machine. Or even your HVAC system. Any of the potential devices that can connect your network can have vulnerabilities. Now, everybody heard of the WannaCry that hit globally and took many businesses down around the world. Nodeware was aware of the vulnerabilities that were leveraged by WannaCry, and we had the vulnerabilities and the description of how to fix it 6 weeks prior to the attack. Now, I talked to somebody about that last week, and the first question they asked was, well, if you knew about that, why didn't you contact the press? Why didn't you make a big stink and let everybody know that this attack was going to happen? The reality is, you don't know which vulnerability is going to be leveraged until the attack actually takes place. So for that reason, you have to stay on top of all the vulnerabilities on all of your endpoints all the time. So traditionally, what do you do about your vulnerabilities? Many of you have annual audits, annual assessments, maybe even semi-annual, where you bring in a very expensive CISSP and they load complicated software on your network and they do a parallel scan of your devices. Oftentimes that means you have 50 to 70% network overhead. So what do you request? You ask them to run the scans off hours. That almost guarantees that you're not going to hit all of your endpoints. You're going to be missing some of the inventory. The other aspect of having it done on an annual basis is sort of like your physical, your annual physical. You go into a doctor, they poke you, they prod you, they test you for just about everything. And at the end, they give you a report and say, here's your health, and here's what you need to do. You walk out the door, and you see a friend. You shake your friend's hand. What you didn't know was that just a moment before, they sneezed into their hand, and now you pick up some virus or some disease, and that health report that you're holding in your other hand is out of date. It's no longer valid. It's the same thing with your networks. They're not static, they're dynamic, they're always changing. You know, at IGI, we have a professional services organization that has been doing vulnerability assessments for over 10 years. At the same time, we've been the recipient of assessments. And what will happen is our network guys will receive a report, oftentimes 200 pages long or more. And it's up to them to look up all the vulnerabilities that are identified, how to fix them, and then do the remediation. That's time consuming and expensive. It could take weeks, if not months, for that to be resolved and taken care of. There has to be a better way. There is a better way. We're going to talk about that today. Nodeware is getting recognized. Channel Pro recognized Nodeware as one of the 2017 vendors on the Vanguard. Now, what does it mean to be a vendor on the Vanguard? Vanguard is cutting edge, forefront, somebody who's thinking of new ways in getting things done. I like to think that it's a disruptive technology that we're introducing. So what makes it disruptive? We take the intellectual understanding of a CISSP, the security specialist, and we remove all the complexity of the software that gets loaded onto your network, and we put it into a plug-and-play sensor. Easy to use, plug it in. Then we introduced a management dashboard, which is easy to use, intuitive, easy to understand. And that's what Brian Drake will be demonstrating to you momentarily. So what happens? I said it was plug and play. You take an Ethernet cable, you plug it into the device, you plug the power in, and that's all you do. Truly plug and play. And what happens then? After it boots up, which takes about 30 seconds, it starts performing 3 tasks. The first task is it'll take an inventory of your network. It looks at every IP address that it can see and tries to identify the hardware, the operating system, the MAC address, and a few other items. and it builds a complete inventory. Then we refresh that inventory every minute. We do it every minute because we want to be able to detect when a new device comes onto your network. That can be potentially a critical event. The second thing that it does is it starts scanning the endpoints for vulnerabilities. Now, as I said, a traditional approach is somebody will come in and do a parallel scan and potentially overwhelm your network. We will scan up to 4 devices at a time and no more than 4. When one job is done, then the next one that is in the queue in the inventory will take its place. Each scan takes about 10 to 15 minutes on average. If you have something that's locked down like a smartphone, it may only take a few seconds. If we're examining a switch, it may take a couple hours. But on average, per device, it's 10 to 15 minutes. And what are we scanning for? We're looking at all of the ports for the running services and processes and all the identified known vulnerabilities that are in the NVD, the National Vulnerability Database. We'll go ahead and we'll scan and we'll look for all those vulnerabilities. And then when they're identified, we'll use the CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, and we're the current release, which is release 3, the industry standard. And that will tell you for each vulnerability the criticality of that vulnerability as well as the likelihood that will be executed against. Then we'll take all the vulnerabilities on a particular endpoint, look at the total number, the criticality of those vulnerabilities, and the likelihood that they're going to be executed against, and we'll run that through our proprietary algorithm and give it a health score. And we'll do that for each device that's on the network. As I said, we only do 4, and the reason we're doing 4 at a time is so we can keep the network overhead below 5%. On average, our benchmarks are coming in about 1.5%, so very low network utilization. The third thing that the Nodeware sensor does is it takes your customer information, your IP information, and the vulnerability information, it splits it into 3 separate files, encrypts that information, and sends it up into the cloud. From the cloud, you access that data and work with that data through the management dashboard. Once again, that is something that Brian will be showing in just a few moments. The last thing that the sensor will do was we give you alerting conditions. There's circumstances that you don't want to have to wait to go to the dashboard, and the 3 that we've set up are if a new critical vulnerability comes online, we'll send you an email. If a new device comes online, we'll send you an email. And finally, if we haven't heard from the Nodeware sensor within 3 minutes, we'll let you know that the communication has been broken, and we'll send you an email for that. That is the overview of what happens in the background. And now we're going to be going over to Brian Drake, who will be showing the management dashboard.
Thanks, Tom. Tom mentioned that my name is Brian. I'm one of the lead developers on the Nodeware product. And what I'd like to do today would just be walk through a typical customer dashboard and kind of give you the look and feel of Nodeware. So the first thing you're going to notice, our landing page has now been replaced by what we're calling our element screen. This really functions as a high-level dashboard, gives a spot for all the different features and functions in Nodeware, or as we like to say, parts or elements of a complete security picture. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. We'll come back to this at the end here once I've kind of gone through each piece. So the bread and butter of Nodeware is our device inventory. As Tom mentioned, this is taken once a minute, and so with that, we're able to give you a complete picture of all your IT assets. So let me walk you through this screen real quick. So as Tom mentioned, we wanted to make this relatable to everyone, whether or not you actually have a CISSP certification or you're just a sysadmin or a network admin. So what we did to make it more relatable with all the scores and weighting that we have going into this, we give you what we call your network score. So what we did, we looked at something I think everyone knows pretty well, your credit score, and kind of base it off that. So your network score is going to be a score on a scale of 0 to 1,000, and it's going to show you the relative health of your network, and if you have multiple locations or whatever, you can see them kind of compared against each other. And so that starts off in this upper left corner. Moving to the right, as Tom mentioned, once a minute we're taking inventory on your network. So we're scanning all potential endpoints and coming back with the ones that are on, off, new devices, that sort of thing. So then in this last scan that just ran, I'm showing 47 devices responded. And then you can see the last time it was run. Then working our way to the right, in total, since this particular Nodeware scanner has been plugged in, it's seen 81 devices it has had a chance to fully vulnerability scan. In total, I just seen 97. So the difference here are devices that are still in the queue, so either brand new devices that haven't been scanned, or other devices such as smartphones and laptops that don't spend enough time on a network to ever really be scanned. And vulnerability scans, on average, take between 5 to 15 minutes per endpoint. So if you have, let's say, an iPhone that comes on and he's on your network for just a moment, and then he hits lock, unfortunately that also disables networking, so we're not able to get a complete scan of that. But the nice thing is, because we manage your inventory like this, the next time that device is on, we're going to prioritize a scan of it, as well as when a new device does connect, we prioritize those as well. So these numbers at the top just kind of let you know what's going on in your network. And then, as you can see, the table below actually lists all of the devices, regardless of their current status. And it's what we wanted to do. This is a newer, the new upcoming version. We wanted to make it as quick and easy to use as possible, and get you the information you need when you first land here. So this table does contain all of your devices, and it is sorted by default to your lowest score. We do this because we feel that those endpoints generally need the most attention. But you can also sort this in a million different ways. The easiest, let's say you wanted to start with just your Windows machines, assuming that they're just a patch or two behind. You can quickly sort out your critical Windows with just 2 clicks. And now I have all my critical Windows machines. But you can use any search criteria if you wanted to just do Windows 10, for instance. Now I'm left to just my Windows 10, but this is a free search. You can type in any criteria, so IP, Mac, host names. For instance, Tom was just on here, and there you go. There's Tom's laptop. So let's take a look at one of these endpoints. So we're going to start with this DC1, which I'm assuming is the main controller. Diving in with a score of 287, it's not looking too good. And so when I actually land, you'll notice that the top left score changed from the overall network health, now just this individual node or endpoint. It is or has been scanned recently, and we found 74 vulnerabilities when we scanned it. And as you can see here to the right, you have a little bit more information. So host name, the operating system we were able to detect, in this case Windows Server 2012 R2, and then the MAC address, which would be for the network interface card, and the vendor if it provides it. So in this case it's a Microsoft card as well, probably because it's a virtual machine. And now down here you'll see a similar table, also searchable in the same way, to where you also have these quick jump tags if you just want to sort to just your lows, your mediums, your highs. As you'll notice, there is no high here, but that's because there's no high vulnerabilities here, so these are dynamic based on the results below. And again, you can type in something, so if you just want to see let's say your SSL vulnerabilities, we have quite a few of them. And most of these have to do with self-signed certificates, which that's fine for intranet use, but not obviously internet. But you might be able to knock out all of those by doing 1 or 2 quick steps to remediation. But let's go take a look at this critical here. It's one you might know. So Shadow Brokers was the recent NSA leak that led to a lot of malware tools being built around it, including the recent WannaCry, as well as a couple other crypto ransomware attacks. So what we do here is, now we're showing you the title of the plugin that we ran to find this vulnerability, the plugin family being Windows. So this means that we received this information from Microsoft, or it was a Microsoft disclosure that led to the creation of this plugin. You can see the CVSS vector. As Tom mentioned, we are CVSS version 3 compliant, and you can get a little more information about when it was created and the last time it was modified. So the other thing we show you here is, you can see this affects port 445, which is obviously SMB port. This lets you know if a particular vulnerability affects 1 or 2 ports, or all of them. Will let you know. This can help you find, let's say you have an SSL on port 8080, and you're thinking, well, I'm not running a web server on port 80, and then you realize, oh, it's 8080. Perhaps it's some sort of development server. This will kind of help you find it and just let you know exactly where we detected the vulnerability. We also let you know if there was a protocol associated with it, in this case SMBs over TCP, but this will reflect that as well. And then however many entries we found on a particular scan. And so this means is if we came back in this case, you saw that earlier, this has a lot of SSL vulnerabilities. This would show several entries for each of those. And generally what that means is if we're serving over port 80, 443, and potentially another development port, you might have multiple situations where you should have had a secure certificate and we don't. And we let you know that because it may be a case where you only fix one and you still don't get rid of all your detected vulnerabilities, or you have a chance to fix once and knock out 10 at once. But anyway, down here is where we actually get into the vulnerability itself. So we'll give you a quick description as well as a solution. In this case, they're telling you to block all versions of SMB at your network boundary. So in this case, your firewall, your router, which is great. We do think that's a good step to prevent attacks from outside. But the idea here that we're trying to push with Nodeware is that Nodeware is essentially just another member on your network. So anyone who gains the same level of access, which is uncredentialed just on your local network, has the same level of access as Nodeware and could detect these same vulnerabilities. So this would be used by an attacker who's maybe potentially targeting your business or office, and maybe war drives to find an open Wi-Fi network, or somehow gets a password off of a whiteboard or a post-it note that shouldn't have been out. So we like to show you what the local level of access would be, assuming that an attacker actually got onto your network. So they would be able to detect this. So the idea of fixing it at the network boundary is fine, but we really suggest fixing these at the endpoint level. And down here under the links, you can kind of find a way to do that. So the first thing we start off with is just a security best practices document that's good to read. It's pretty relevant. And then the 2 Microsoft knowledge base articles that actually explain that there has been a patch, as Tom mentioned, available for quite a while, that does solve this and actually disables SMB version 1 in favor of 2 and 3. So we're going to go back to the report here so you can see this again. And actually I'm going to step it back even one more. Go back to the overall devices view. Load the inventory one more time. And I just want to take a look at one more endpoint here, in this case our VMware host. So this host is interesting because we use it for development, and it is locked to a certain version, in this case ESXi version 5.5, as you can see here. And in this case, there are newer versions available that fix a majority of these vulnerabilities, but we've decided that this is a development machine. It's internal. There's no internet access from it. Nothing's opened up. So what you can do, if you know this is how you want it to stay, and you honestly don't need the Nodeware to scan it for vulnerabilities, and you're aware of them, you can exclude an endpoint. The other reason to do this might be if you have a particularly sensitive device, so let's say an HVAC system, or we've heard of all sorts of different things, printers or VoIP phones that for whatever reason don't react well to being vulnerability scanned. You can exclude them, meaning that we will still show you the inventory whether they're on or off, but we will not scan the endpoint for vulnerabilities. Now usually that means that the vulnerability scanner hit upon an active vulnerability in the system that is causing it to mess up, but if for some reason you either want to avoid it altogether or just don't want it included, you're able to exclude it. So you just click exclude, and it's just that simple. It's no longer going to be scanned. You'll still see the results of the previous scans if we've had them. You're also able to exclude a device as soon as it appears in the queue, so if there's something you don't want to even have an initial scan, you're able to do that as well. But re-including it's just as simple. You just click exclude again, and right there it's right back in the queue. So let's take a look at one of these VMware vulnerabilities, because as I mentioned, this has to do with several different software levels, so vSphere and a couple others that were affected, as well as ESXi. And in this case, it touches upon 2 CVEs. So what we'll do is not only tell you the CVE number, but we give you the definition from the National Vulnerability Database. In this case, the solution, as I assumed, would be to apply some missing patches. So let me show you under the See Also link here from VMware. Because they're one of our direct partners, we are able to take you right to their security advisories page. This is where we get the information that helps generate these plugins. And it kind of walks you right through the problem description, right all the way down to the solution, which is, hey, download the newest version, get it installed, and you can read some more. But these links are highly relevant to the issue at hand and usually provide a deeper solution, maybe more descriptive than apply the missing patches. But we knew in this case this is something that will stay fluid as they release new versions. So this is a good one to just follow the link and get yourself up to date. And the other thing too, as I mentioned before, this one affects multiple ports because this is a multiple issue situation. So we do let you know in this case that it is multiple. But yeah, just one more time just to see. So it is just 3 clicks away. So you're clicking once to get into an endpoint view and see all the vulnerabilities on it. One more time, you're right at the test results, description, and the solution. So it really is just 2 clicks, and you're in at the point of remediation. Okay, and before I leave devices, what I wanted to mention, we do have external scanning as well. This particular account doesn't have any good examples of that yet, but it works very similar to the way the internal works. So you submit your external IPs, and that can be for your firewall, VPN access, development servers, and then you can also submit domain names. And what we can do is we'll run an external scan using the same Nodeware platform, but we've scaled it up, put it in the cloud, and we're able to run those remotely to let you know what someone that was attacking you from outside or across the internet would see when they scan those same endpoints. And the reports look virtually identical. The only difference is the external does also have a full suite of web application scanners. So if you're hosting a web app, we can run that. The internal does contain a version of that as well for internal web apps, but it's really external facing ones we run, and we check you're not going to be vulnerable to SQL injection or any of these other click attacks. So that is available in the full product. And the only difference, or the real important difference to remember, is that when Nodeware is on your network, it's more of an opt-out, meaning we're gonna give you inventory of all your devices. We're gonna show you scans from all your devices, whereas the external is opt-in, meaning we're not gonna assume that you own an external IP or a domain name. We'll let you submit that, and then it's scanned on demand. And in the coming months, you'll see scheduling appear as well, so you can get regularly scheduled external scans. Now onto reporting. So when we were building Nodeware, our goal was to really develop a real-time report, meaning when you log into the dashboard, that's kind of your report. It's very interactive, takes you right through all the steps. But we recognize that people still have use for paper reports, whether you need to take it to a higher up, to a meeting to justify some remediation time, or you just want to keep track of where you were at a certain point. We do offer a PDF report. I'm going to show you the sample one here. It works the same way as the dashboard. We just start with an executive summary. So you get your company name that you're able to put in yourself, walks you through your entire network score, as well as your top 10 vulnerabilities. So these would be sorted first by severity, so in this case critical, and then number of hosts affected. And then your most common. So these may not be the most severe. In this case, our most common one is a low. That's that we're advertising our TCP timestamps. As you can see, that affects 38 hosts. And the reason we put this out there is if you were looking for one thing that you could do that would affect the most hosts on your network, this is a great place to start. So you might be able to find one solution that works and you're able to push it out as a policy, or just a quick fix and get your score up as well as your network health. The next page here is your network vulnerability profile, just showing you a breakdown of the vulnerabilities on your network by class. And then following in the last piece to the executive summary is just a host vulnerability overview. So just counts of how many vulnerabilities found, and then how many critical, high, medium, and low. And again, sorted by score lowest. And you can see this does include externals. So if you have domains, these are going to be sorted right with this, so you can kind of get an idea of, again, what to tackle first. The other nice thing is if you open this in Adobe Reader and you are viewing it electronically, these are all hyperlinks, and they will actually take you down to the page in the report that has to do with that particular host. Let me jump down here, jump down to one. So, okay, so these are going to be sorted not in severity order, but rather logical network order. So in this case, climbing by IP. This particular machine, you're able to see similar like you would in the dashboard. We've got the recent IP, MAC address. If we can pull a vendor off that MAC, we do. In this case, there was no host name for this, and we hadn't set an alias. We can tell you when we first discovered this device, and then just show you the vulnerabilities, again, by severity. The only thing we do exclude from the reports, well, there's two things we exclude from the reports. One is informational messages. So if you're using Nodeware and we go into one of the device endpoints, we usually will show you some informational messages. And those generally aren't active vulnerabilities, meaning there's something that in the future could be exploited, or it'll tell you, hey, we were able to detect you running this version of this service. That in the future, again, it's more information for someone that is going to attack you, but also in the future could become a vulnerability. But either way, we don't categorize those as active vulnerabilities. So in this case, they're left off the paper report, and that's really also just to save you some paper, because there's quite a lot of informational messages. But you're able to also export your data. So we have a lot of people that are looking to take this to CSV, to an Excel, or just to a data manipulation tool or a reporting tool. If you use something like Tableau, a lot of them will handle what we're going to give you, which is a zip file of JSON. So JavaScript object notation files that are used by the most popular data tools out there. And if you do need something like a CSV, there's plenty of online converters. We link to one right here for you. But both the export and the network report take some time to run as we get them together. So what we'll do is when you hit generate, we're actually going to build it for you and send it to your email that you use to sign up. And that is a secure file delivery, meaning we're going to send you a link. It's a one-time hashed link that is randomized. The link is only live for about 3 hours. If you miss the window, you'll get a message when you try and download it that's no longer available, and you would have to go in and request it again. We do this for security. I mean, it's your data, and even though we do everything we can to make sure it's private, we just want to make sure it's not hanging out there. So once you are able to get it, it disappears, and you don't have to do anything on your end to make sure no one else can get access to that. The other piece that's not shown on this, because this particular account doesn't have access, is the API. So we do have a RESTful JSON API, because we recognize other people use other tools or have different network panes of glass, and if you want to roll the Nodeware data into it, you're able to do that. So you just would just request a token, and you get one instantly, and then you're able to start using the API. And we do have plenty of code samples and examples that we can send you depending on the integration you're going for. But we're always interested to hear what people are using it for and how you're using it, so we might engage you in that way. Next piece here on the Nodeware dashboard is alerts, as Tom mentioned. We have 3 different triggers currently, and we're planning on adding more in the future based on user feedback and other just good ideas that we hear. The first being critical vulnerability. So when we scan through your network, we do have a daily email that you can turn on, and what that'll do is just let you know if in the past 24 hours we detected any critical vulnerabilities on your network. It'll tell you the endpoint, and then let you jump in and give you a link to the dashboard to get in and get more information about that. Second is new device, and this one is probably my favorite, which sounds odd to say, but when you're managing a network, sometimes you don't realize, and that's usually the first thing people remark about, is they don't truly know exactly what's on their network, meaning we're in the age of bring your own device and in the Internet of Things. So there's a lot of things that just end up on networks that don't appear as an IT asset tag, but you may not have seen that. So what this will do is anytime we discover a new device when doing inventory, we'll send you an alert within a minute, and that'll contain a roll-ups, meaning if you scan and you find 50 new devices, we're not sending you 50 emails. We're sending you one email with the information that we're immediately able to return. So stuff like IP address, MAC address, vendor, and then a link again to jump into the dashboard, and hopefully by then we've had a chance to fingerprint it as well as vulnerability scan it. And then the last alert we currently have is sensor offline. So this is most helpful when you're monitoring a remote network or you're not on site and the Nodeware sensor loses connection to our back end. We're going to let you know. Now that could indicate network connectivity issues, as well as just the network, either the physical sensor coming unplugged, or we also have a VM sensor that's available shortly that maybe for some reason wasn't configured correctly and dropped off. Either way, we're just going to let you know we only send one per offline event. So if you intentionally unplugged it and you get the notification, you don't have to do anything. We're not going to warn you again. But it does let you know that, hey, for some reason we lost connection to the internet and the Nodeware backend. The other thing too is Tom mentioned a lot of these are sent by email. So when you sign up, you provide your email address. Well, that's not where you want these alerts to go, or you want to send them off to a particular technician or your ticketing system. What you can do here is specify up to 3 alternate email addresses, and we're actually going to use these in the place of the email you signed up with, and you're able to save that, and that'll send it to up to these 3 just right at the same time. So we like to have our ticketing system on there. That way it creates a ticket automatically. But you might have other people you just feel that need to be notified. So we allow you to do that. Last big piece here is just the support. And this is in case you either don't remember what I said today or don't feel like watching another tutorial. You can just jump in. It's a lot of self-help. So there's a walkthrough of all the features, how to use them, what certain things mean. We, for the most part, have tried to simplify the language again, so you don't have to be CISSP to navigate. And if in case we're using some sort of lingo you're not familiar with, the answer's all here in the support documentation. The last piece I do want to touch on, as I briefly mentioned, we do have a VM version that's going to be available shortly, and we offer that in 3 flavors. Here at IGI, we're a big VMware partner, so they're top of our list. But we also recognize some people want to use VirtualBox, which, depending on your deployment, can go from free to pretty expensive. But we offer VirtualBox as well as Microsoft's Hyper-V. These particular Nodeware VMs are Linux-based, so you're not going to run into any additional costs as far as licensing. If you have an existing VM server, you're able to quickly deploy Nodeware and get it up and running. So, yeah, that's the tour for today. So thanks, and I will stick around to answer any technical questions you might have afterwards. But I'm going to turn it over to Megan. She's our marketing manager, and she would like to tell you about a case study that is relevant to the legal industry.
Hi everyone, my name's Megan. I'm the marketing manager here at IGI in Nodeware. I'm going to run through a case study so you can kind of see a use case with a law firm that's actually based here in Rochester. It has 3 locations across the Northeast, and they've been in business for 100 years. So they're really established, reputable law firm, and they deployed Nodeware and they're having great success using it. They agreed to be part of a case study, which we love. Okay, so the challenges that they faced are similar to what you're facing, I'm sure, as IT directors and administrators at law firms. They need to protect their own information, but of course they also need to protect client confidentiality. So that's something that obviously is regulated by federal requirements, and also something that law firms need to do. They also need to monitor their networks for new or suspicious devices. Obviously, that's a great feature. Brian kind of ran through that. It's great to see exactly what's on your network. If you see a new device come on that you don't recognize, great to have that visibility. And in this case, with this law firm, they actually had a client that required this, that wanted to make sure that the law firm was able to see new devices as they came on their networks. They were able to meet that requirement. And also, just to reiterate what Tom said, you're used to having the annual or even maybe biannual, vulnerability scanning and assessments and audits. In this case, they're getting around-the-clock, continuous vulnerability scanning. And in this case, this law firm was overwhelmed by the solutions that are available out there. So there's a lot of cybersecurity solutions out there. I'm sure you've checked them out, but they were looking for something that was simple and affordable. As you saw from the user dashboard that Brian went through, it is truly easy to use, easy to understand, and they were able to take their 3 locations and their multiple networks and deploy Nodeware across all of them, and then roll it up into a single dashboard to have that visibility and control and management on one dashboard. So the results of using Nodeware with this customer, they're getting that continuous automated vulnerability management. They'll also be able to leverage external scans not only for themselves, but for clients on demand. So as Brian mentioned, IP addresses, websites, they can do that on demand with external scanning. And they were able to meet those client requirements for security, right? Not just the new network or new devices coming out of network, but as security challenges pop up and clients have requirements, they're able to use Nodeware for a lot of those. And they're able to manage all their networks on a single dashboard. So many law firms have multiple locations or even multiple offices, home offices, remote locations, but they're able to manage all their networks and the vulnerabilities on those networks within the Nodeware dashboard. At the end of the day, the big value add for them was that it filled a security gap. It was affordable and simple, but it also just fills a gap for them and gives them that visibility and control of their network vulnerabilities. So in this case, being a law firm, they didn't want to have their name disclosed in our case study online or this live stream. But if you want to hear more about this case study and connect directly with this law firm, they are willing to give a testimonial and talk to people directly on the phone via email to kind of vouch for Nodeware and share their story. So just let us know and contact us if you want that access. And now we'll just open it up to questions. If you have any questions, you can type it right in the chat box, and we'll see them come across, and we'll address those as they come up. And then if there's no questions, we can kind of just open up discussion about what are you facing is your cybersecurity challenge. And then, we can have, Brian from the technical side, we talk about Nodeware and how we can address those challenges. So if there's any questions or comments, we'll take those now. Okay, our contact information is listed right here. So nodeware@igius.com. Visit nodeware.com, check us out a little more. There's video there, there's photos, there's case studies and some other assets you can check out. But just reach out to us directly. I have Tom's email listed here and Tom's direct number. So if you want to reach out to us, just give us a call. Thanks for joining us, and thank you to the ILTA for organizing this.